Dan Delmar in for Aaron. He is back next week, and it will be Trudy who will be in the chair tomorrow and Friday. Trudy Mason, the veteran, coming up on Montreal Now. Caryma Levy is on the way, in case you missed it yesterday, the year in tech and what he expects in terms of innovation in 2025, especially on the AI front. First, though, let's take a look at politics and the protest circuit in Canada. Caryma is a very popular YouTuber. She's a lawyer and an independent journalist who spends a lot of time covering the protest circuit, especially in Toronto and Ottawa, and filming some of the wildest scenes, really, that we can imagine. Caryma is back on CJAD. Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So first, why do you do this, Caryma? Because these people, in some cases, are really not stable. It can be entertaining sometimes, but scary in other times. I remember covering the 2012 student protests here in Montreal, and it was pretty scary. Why do you do this to yourself?
Well, I might be a bit masochistic, but the real reason is I think there is a major gap or void in the way that mainstream media tackles protests. And so I have documented a range of causes, including the anti-lockdown, freedom movement, relating to drag story time, obviously now Israel-Palestine, countless diaspora protests. And to me, it's really interesting seeing some of the patterns that emerge, both in terms of individuals and tactics in the protest circuit. So for me, it's about understanding, because clearly our social fabric is fraying, and I think the civil unrest in the streets is a symptom of that.
With Israel-Palestine, obviously we're not going to get into the conflict. I'm Jewish or Palestinian, but we do see scenes on both sides, especially in Toronto, that we really haven't seen in years before. The persistence of the protests, I think, is what strikes me on both sides.
Yes. In some cases, it's like weekly protests that have been going on for over a year now. And this is happening on both sides of the equation. So very much an uptick in regularity of protests. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Obviously, a large part of it is people reacting to the information that they consume and feeling perhaps powerless in any real way to affect change. Being out on the street gives people that sense at times. And there's also a community element to it. And that's, I believe, why we see so much repetition in individual protesters, because it becomes about more than a particular cause, but also connecting in real life with like-minded people.
Do they feel that they're accomplishing anything? Regardless, we're not necessarily talking about the Middle East, but any of these protesters, downtown Toronto, downtown Ottawa, do they get a sense that they're helping the cause, really?
It's hard to give a blanket answer because different individuals will even have different reasons for wanting to protest, and so different objectives that they're seeking. So there is no singular answer. I do believe there is a sense of raising awareness at any cost, disrupting business as usual. Within certain protest movements, there's also an undercurrent of wanting to cause maximum chaos. And so that as a pursuit, the actual cause can sometimes fall secondary to it and counterproductive or things that harm the public opinion, like that's not taken into account as much. So I think, you get a different answer depending on who you ask.
Caryma joins us. You can follow her on Twitter as well as YouTube, where you can see all of these crazy protest videos. What's the craziest thing you saw on the streets in 2024?
Oh, boy. It's funny. I did a tournament-style voting showdown with some of my favorite videos from the year. There was a lot that happened. I witnessed a lot of blocking public infrastructure. A railway protest was probably the most dramatic in that sense. But, the the top voted video was police ferrying over a carton of Tim Hortons to protesters. And that clip is really something that got people talking from coast to coast.
Yeah, that one made the news, I believe. So I think what happened there, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the protesters were trying to get some Tim Hortons over to their friends, but they were met with a police blockade. And so the police officers themselves said, no, I'll help you out. I'll deliver it for you.
Very accurate. And, there was a group protesting. Police kind of split the group in half. And then as a show of good faith, they were going to carry over the coffee rather than let the people back in. And of course, the thing with raw footage, which is what I present, I offer minimal commentary, except as it relates to the Canadian angle of things. But that clip was interpreted, sometimes deliberately misinterpreted, in many different ways. And it really offers a story on narrative and why people should be sourcing information from multiple angles, because within an echo chamber, I think there are a lot of people who had the wrong impression from that clip.
Yeah, I mean, if you just saw part of that clip, you would think that the Toronto police were actually feeding the protesters coffee and donuts.
That's right.
So lastly, I can't help but think, and I do have some appreciation for this conflict, but you got into a tussle with some anti-racism people. The anti-racism people, Caryma, in Canada, I've described as one of the least productive industries that we have going. Some of the least productive people in our society are spending their careers and their days focused on anti-racism. Do you feel that a lot of these anti-racist protesters are actually seemingly very even hateful or aggressive people?
I've definitely been on the receiving end of aggression. And, you hit the nail on the head when you refer to it as an industry. And when someone has a vested financial interest, or potentially there are people who receive power or influence from working in this sphere, we need to be really diligent about scrutinizing the information that is presented, because there's an incentive to continue having hate to combat. And that's been my observation. I would agree with you that it's a largely unproductive industry, and a lot of what has come out of it is not likely to resolve the issue of hate. I don't think shame gets us there. I don't think fear-mongering gets us there. I think we need to emphasize humanizing one another, and that can't happen if it's a cancel culture approach.
Real quick, do you expect a calmer 2025 or more action on the streets?
I would expect to see more action. We're going to have most likely some shakeups in the federal government. That is going to trigger a whole different wave of protests. And of course, we don't see any resolution to the main issues that are currently getting people out on the street. So I have no reason to suspect it dies down unless something changes in the enforcement landscape.
Caryma Sad, lawyer, journalist, satirist. You can check her out on YouTube at Caryma Rules. She is on X as well. Anywhere else we can find your work?
You can find me on Instagram too. Just look up Sad Lawyer Toronto and you will find me.
Excellent. Happy New Year, Caryma. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.